See you all. I am Robin Ridgely. I'm the Assistant Director of the Center here for Teaching and Mentoring. So this is the first in our series of new programs and courses. So I'm really excited that we're getting this kicked off by having two of our administrators here at the university to share with us. This particular session is an overview session to just talk about the things to consider, if there are priorities that the university has that we need to be thinking about, just all things as you're starting to plan for new programs at both the undergraduate and graduate level, things that we need to be considering rather than just, in times past, we had a good idea and we just ran with it. These days, there are many more things that we need to be thinking about. So I'm very excited. We have with us Dr. Amy Aldridge. She is our Vice Provost of Academic Programs. I'm going to have just a brief bio about both of them, so I'll share Amy's first. She's an accomplished academic leader, a TEDx speaker, a scholar, activist, currently serving here at MTSU. She has a PhD in Communication Studies from the University of Iowa. She's dedicated her career to advancing inclusive excellence in higher education. She's the author of From Thought to Action, Developing a Social Justice Orientation, and is the lead editor of a new book about reconciliation. Amy has served in prominent national leadership roles, including past president of the Central States Communication Association. And then also with us is Dr. Rasha El-Qadira. She's the Associate Dean of the College of Graduate Studies and Associate Professor in the Department of Geosciences. She received her PhD from Western Michigan University and is an expert in hydrology, remote sensing, and geographic information systems. She's led multiple federally funded projects through organizations like NASA and NSF. And she's a dedicated educator who emphasizes hands-on field research and geospatial workforce development for her students. So they're here today to talk about academic program development. So they're wearing their academic hat as opposed to their area of specialization. So we are grateful for y'all to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take it away.
First, thank you for the invitation. I do want to say for those of you online, we can see the crowd there. Thank you for showing up online as well. And Robin has been kind enough to share her laptop with us so we can see who you are. And we're all very glad you're here. And I hope that we'll see this as a conversation for both the folks in person and online. And today there are 3 handouts. And I imagine, Robin, you could probably make the handouts available to the folks online as well. But we'll be going through 3 different handouts. Rasha's going to start by going through this handout that has a bunch of questions on it. And then Amma will talk through the process for new degree programs. It looks like this, front and back. And then the state, the Tennessee Higher Education Commission, which you'll hear me refer to as THEC, they have new guidelines around the letter of notification, which you'll hear us call a LON or an LON, which is the first step. And then they also have new guidelines around the second step, which is a new academic program proposal, or the NAP. Which is what you're most likely to hear us refer to it as. So I'll go through those, just kind of talk about the differences now. They have made things easier, quite frankly. They are trying to speed up the process as much as they can around new academic degrees, mainly for the workforce demand around these degrees. And us living in the region we live in, which has had incredible population growth, which plays a lot on your infrastructure and the needs in the workforce. So they are very motivated by that because they answer to the legislative requirements, and that means the process you recently changed, and I'll talk through those a little bit with you. So I'm going to turn it over to my friend and colleague, Rasha, who is very involved in new grad degree proposals to talk through this questions document.
Yeah, well, thank you for CTM for having us today, and I'm excited to be here with you today to share a little bit about what it really takes to develop a new program, whether I'm assuming some of you are in the brainstorming phase or actively working on the process. So this session is designed to give you some clarity about the process, timeline, things to avoid, but also resources that could be available to you. So think about developing a new program. Obviously, we all think about it as a academic exercise because that's what we're doing. We're developing a new program and adding it to the portfolio of our institution, but it's also a strategic act. And that's what I'm here to discuss with you through the questions I'm going to go through. Just to get you situated, so the handout process for new degree programs, that's step 1 to 7. I'm going to be mostly covering, at least for now, step 1, discussing key questions with program chair and dean, which is the other handouts. So the title of the handout is looking into starting a new major, elevating an existing concentration to a major. What type of question to discuss with your chair, dean, university? So before rewriting curriculum, before proposing a new program, it's very important to be able to answer these questions as clearly as possible, because they would help a lot they would help as strategic filters for your draft, for your proposal, for your new program. The big question is why? Is this student driven? What does enrollment data say? And we have Power BI to help us with that. Are related majors growing around the nation, but around the states? What do we see in terms of employment trend? I've had recently, like just today, a discussion we were talking about recruitment for different graduate programs and what's not. And we are like brainstorming our strategy in terms of, okay, what flyers, what events, what digital marketing. And in the middle of that discussion, it just came, I just thought about something that I wanted to share with you is the best recruitment tool is a strong program. When we have a strong program that responds to actual student need, to workforce need, it makes all the other work easier. And that's when developing a new program, that's the kind of question. The bigger the why, the bigger the reason for creating that program, the easier everything that comes from that point, including drafting a proposal. So in addition to obviously student need, and a reference that, what is the workforce pool nationally and regionally and in the greater Nashville area? It shouldn't be anecdotal, it should be documented. The last 5 years, the last 10 years, what is the projected 5 year? What type of salaries, what type of regional uniqueness the area has? All of this, it may seem outside of usually our area of focus when we think about an academic program, but that data, if it's clear, if it shows a story, if it shows a clear message, that's what THAC is going to be looking for. That's what the commissioners are going to be looking for. That's what our boards are going to be looking for, and that's what will make the program eventually successful. And THAC in particular is going to require comparison to similar programs in Tennessee, and is it duplicative? That's something else that you're going to need to look at. What other similar programs exist? So in terms of, okay, this is the supply, and then what is the demand? And comparing, it's almost like an economical activity. What is the supply in terms of this major students, and what is the demand in terms of the workforce? And of course, it has to align with the mission of the institution. We have a fairly brand new strategic plan, 2025, 2035, or what we call 2035 strategic plan. There is a state mission, state master plan. So all of this has to be in alignment, and all of this is not guesswork. We have tools, we have data, we have resources to be able for us to respond to this question. So I'll share with you 2 major resources that are available to us. One is a Hanover contract, and MTSU has that contract, and what it does is anything from market feasibility studies, competitive landscape analysis, like looking at other schools, enrollment projections, labor market alignment analysis, employer demand. So these are researchers that we would contract the study to and say, program X, what are employment needs? What are the salaries? What are the growth in terms of programs, peer programs around the states? And we've done so many of these, and I would recommend you would do one as early as you have a conversation with your chair, your dean, when there is enough internal interest. Don't wait too long, but also those conversations could be informed by data from a study by Hanover. We also use it, and Amy can tell you that we use it usually as a data point for the LON when we present one to the state, to THAC, and we have a strong LON supporting us. It's definitely a strong data point. Another tool I would like to share with you is LikeCast. So it's a license, and mostly it's real-time labor market analysis, it's regional job posting, it's salary data. So it goes a little bit more in depth than Hanover. However, it's self-driven. So with Hanover, somebody's gonna come, is gonna have a conversation with you. They're gonna take 6 weeks, and they do the study for you and give you a report that's ready. With LikeCast, so you would experiment more with the data. You would include or introduce different zip codes, different subcodes. And it's like, okay, this zip code, this helps more at the brainstorming stage. As you're thinking about all the questions I've highlighted before in terms of student growth, employment trend, all of that, this is the experimentation phase. And the way to access this data set is just send me an email, College of Grad Studies, and these are resources that are available to every faculty around campus. Another thing, as I'm going through this document, some other things to talk about in addition to the why, which is the most important question, but also where, the how, the what is the delivery format? What is the best delivery format for the student population that you're trying to target? What facilities are available in your department, outside your department, in the college, potentially maybe in a different college? What are your equipment needs? What is the faculty capacity, library, IT, especially when we're talking about online programs? You need to have a good understanding or plan for how that's going to be done online. And all of this information, as you're doing this research, it may seem like a lot, especially at the early stages, but you're not doing it on your own. You're doing it as discussions with chair, with colleagues, with your dean, with the vice provost of academic program. And it's not going to stop if those discussions are successful. All the data you collected, it will go later in sections that are required by THAC. Like THAC is going to want to see the answers to these questions. They're going to see, okay, what is the delivery format, and why have you picked this? And do you have the support system, the equipment, the faculty capacity to do it that way? And then also, there is another big question is in terms of program needs. A new program at MTSU or any other institution is going to be an investment, at least your time and the administrative process time. You're going to need administrative support. You're going to need to add advising bandwidth, because it's a new program that we're going to have to advise. You're going to need marketing needs. The big question is, as you're trying to get more resources, is this program truly growing the pie or just redistributing students? And if it is redistributing students, it's something new and good and cool and it's necessary, but it's not adding new students. Maybe you could still do it, but just updating existing programs. We constantly, and Dr. Aldridge could speak more of that, like there are constant course redesign, programs to redesign, new concentration. It's updating our portfolio. And maybe that's what needed some time, but some other time when we are growing the pie, that's when we go through all this process. So these are some of my thoughts, initial thought at least. I have more to share, but I'll leave it to, so just so we don't monopolize the conversation, I'll leave it to Dr. Aldridge and then I'll pick it up later.
I think I'll go and pause and see if there are questions in the chat that we could address, because we're on step 1. And I know this seems like a lot, but if you do the good work on the front end, it will save a lot of heartbreak. Because if we decide then this isn't a good idea, it's best to decide it before you start putting a lot of time and energy into a written document. So I do want to pause because I know this can seem really overwhelming, and see if there are any questions or comments just about the early work of doing this. Is it Mary Jane?
Mary Ann.
Mary Ann?
Yes, Mary Ann.
Mary Ann.
Representing the library collections, basically, I'm here today to say to people, please, please, please involve the library in your initial discussions. I've been here for a year, and we've already had one program that we had to backtrack and buy resources for, which was, it was a heavy lift on the library. And so I just want to say that new programs are great, but if the library can't support those programs, then we have a problem from the very beginning. So please, please, please involve the library.
Yeah, so something I do that a lot of people may not be aware of is I meet quarterly with Dean Schmand and VP Clark. I always use their first names, I think of their last names, to discuss upcoming programs that are on my spreadsheet. Right. I've gotten that far along. Because of this, right, the IT demands and the library demands can be very costly. We have never said no here to a program based on those two costs. I have been other places we've said no, but here's those two areas are pretty well supported by the institution. But you're absolutely right. The reviewers care a lot about the library collection. Oh, we have a very good one. And SAC COC cares a lot about library collections. Those are two things we want to definitely keep an eye on, especially once you start the LON process. So other questions or comments? I know some of the folks that are joining us today have done this work, so they may have something they want to add. Did you see anything in the chat?
Nothing in the
Okay.
chat yet.
I was a teacher first, so I can pregnant pause a long time. But let me say this from the beginning. I've done this work for 10 years, here for 4, and I was at Texas A&M school for 6, and I've always done this work when I've been in the provost office. It's some of my favorite work. I love doing curriculum stuff when I was a faculty member. And some people who do my work will allow the organization to tell faculty what they're going to do in these spaces. Or they'll hire a bunch of consultants to write these things, and then they'll put a faculty name on it. We don't do that here. I'm not saying we don't ever have an idea that comes from the administration, because we do. The legal studies degree is an example of that. But if we can't find a faculty champion and a department that really wants to own it, we won't do it. And so I think that's really important to know that here, for something to be entered into curricula, we require it to come from a faculty member. In the discipline area, we feel that that is serving our accreditation agreements correctly. And so that is the way we do it. So if your department cannot get on board with something you want to do, good luck. I mean, because it's really going to require a united front from the beginning on that. If your chair in your dean's office isn't signing off, it's really hard to launch it out of the college. And our provost will be very hesitant about that, just because of how he manages. He won't like that. And so it's really important in these early stages that you're building that consensus and cohesiveness. And sometimes that takes a while. We have some degree programs, and I know we got people who can testify to this if they want. We have some degree programs that have stalled a decade because they just couldn't find the right mix of people to make it work. So, and there's other reasons they get stalled, but that's a big one, and that's okay. This process can go as fast as 18 months. It's probably the fastest I've seen. I've seen 2 recently do that, which is pretty incredible, from start to finish. And it can take, I mean, there is stuff out there that has been out there longer than I've been at the institution, that hasn't been completed yet. And I've been here 4 years. All right. So that's okay. It is a huge project management ordeal to put these things through. But we are here on the grad side. Rosh is there to help you on the grad or undergrad. I'm here to help you I've got a wonderful staff. You know, I've got Mitzi, Brandon, and Paula in the catalog space. I've got Tyler and his whole crew in the registrar space, and we will definitely help you through it. But we understand it's a lot. Some departments will give you reassigned time to do something like this, especially if it's very tied to the strategic plan. You know, there are other agreements that are made in some departments around these things. So, okay, are we ready for me to move on and talk about next steps once you've got everybody signed on? We all feel good about that? People online, anybody want to stop me before I move on to do that? So you got buy-in. That's what I'm thinking at this point. It's okay if you don't have it to pause or say, okay, we're not gonna do this right now. You're not a failure, okay? If that happens, it's just part of the process. Okay, once you've got that buy-in at the departmental level and you've had the conversation, your chair, of course, should know because they should be in those meetings. And you've checked in with your dean's office. That's when you formally notify me with undergrad. And then formally, I would ask you let me and Rasha know at the grad level. Now, the first thing I'm gonna do is if you haven't CC'd those other people in that email, I'm gonna email you back and say, is your dean on board? You know, I need to know everybody really wants this, or do you need me to help you talk with your dean? I can help with that too, but ultimately it will be your dean's decision typically on curriculum. And so then I get involved, and that's when I really start walking you through some things. And the thing I'm gonna really concentrate on with you immediately is the LON. And so you have a sheet that says Tennessee Higher Education Commission at the top. It's an 8-pager because they've combined LON and NAP into one document now. And you will see it's a checklist, right? And I give you examples of completed LONs for you to look at once you're in this process. But you know, you have the program information, which you heard Rasha talk about SIP and SOC. You can see in that paragraph what those things are. We're working on widgets right now, so some of you are becoming very familiar with SIP and SOCs right now, but these are some formal definitions. The program liaison name, which I'm always going to be listed because I'm a university's liaison to THEC, but if you want your originator, the person writing this proposal to be listed, they can be listed there and they'll receive all the same emails I receive from the state. A proposed implementation date, I can tell you, we try very hard to start all our degree programs in May. But there's so much that goes into that date. There's so many things I have to juggle on my end when it comes to approvals. So I've got to go to the Board of Trustees twice, at the beginning of your proposal and at the end when we're getting ready to go before the commissioners. So those are set dates, right? The Board of Trustees meet on set dates. The actual TX staff, they don't have set dates. I can send them stuff year round anytime I want to. But the commissioners have set dates, right? They only meet 4 times a year, sometimes a 5th special meeting. So I've got to stay within their dates. So sometimes and then all the internal approvals, right? I try not to take anything. Now, our policy doesn't state anything. Some of these things have to happen in a specific order, but I try really hard not to go to the commissioner meeting without all the internal approvals done, right? But sometimes those things fall out of order. So anyway, that can be something really tough to juggle. But if we can start in May, that's when I like to start because that's when our catalog officially starts every year. I have done some August starts. And I have done some January starts, especially when they're very workforce-driven programs.
Amy, I just want to add about the dates. So most programs are going to have that May start. Of course, like Amy mentioned, there will be some exceptions. And the reason why, I mean, we think in terms of academic year. So from your perspective, when you're planning for a program to be launched 2 years from now, it's like, well, it's going to be launched in the fall. Correct. It's going to launch in the fall. But for it to launch in the fall, officially we put that as a May start because between May and August is like a race for us in the office to, once we get the approval, the official approval for TEC, that's only when we can create the code for the program. And then we have to set up the admission checklist and start admitting students. So if we actually officially start in the fall, that would not give us a window for admission. In addition to that, we have to launch it officially in the catalog. And the catalog is an annual publication, plus use that catalog launch to have it in DegreeWorks. This is all back work, so a degree exists at MTSU and there are the requirements and the student can go through that map for the program. And on top of all of that, recruitment and marketing. We can start recruiting and marketing earlier typically, but one of our most effective strategies is digital marketing. It's when you go to social media, when a student goes to social media, Instagram, Facebook, that's a good way to reach them. If they search or they're interested in anything related, let's say cybersecurity, well, then maybe an ad from MTSU is gonna pop up about the new program, especially if they've been searching about those terms. That process by itself would require, that process by itself, for instance, when a student let's say they click on the ad, and they come to our website, they need to see the catalog entry. They need to see the course displayed. So it's what I'm trying to describe here. It's a fine-tuned machine and there's like a sequence. And we figure out that May start is the ideal for all of this to happen effectively for a fall start.
Yeah, the other piece we have to take into consideration with the dates is SAC COC. And that's a meeting you'll have with Mary or Lane separately, or Mary's replacement separately, to talk about whether we're gonna have to report you as a program with how much new content you have. It's not new courses, it's new content. And that is a very specialized conversation you would need to have. So we would know how many months potentially to add for approval on the end, because SACS is going to want to see you've gotten all the other approvals first before they want to acknowledge a new degree program. So those are all things we have to think out. Now with the LON, you're just going to slap a date down there that we're going to try for this, right? When we go to do the NAP later on, that's when you're going to get into the real details about, okay, this is the date we will submit the NAP. This is the date we want the external reviewer to come. This is the date it'll go to SACS, because SACS has 2 dates a year, right? And so those are all things we'll spell out more in the NAP. So LON's a little looser document, but I want you to start thinking timeline in that document. The item under that, delegation criteria alignment. This is a new item, and this is kind of exciting because this is new for Tennessee. And what this allows is for THEC staff to approve a degree program so that it no longer has to go in front of the commission, which could speed things up a lot, okay? Now, a couple things. Any commissioner can ask for the program to come in front of them, right? They can decide they want to see any program. But if you meet the criteria that is laid out on the back, which I think I'm getting ready to do my first one of these, if you're able to meet this, then you can have the opportunity for delegated authority. So that's pretty cool. That could take months off the approval process easily. So that's kind of exciting. And then you'll see all this other stuff's been there for a while, the purpose and nature of academic program, the alignment with the state master plan and the institutional mission. And that's also the 2035 plan that Rasha pointed to. It was written for new degree programs. I mean, it wasn't purposely written, but it is. Priority 1 very much talks about the importance of the right academic degree programs for the institution. And so if you're choosing, well, we wouldn't let you get too far if you weren't, for our inventory, our degree inventory, that will be a no-brainer on the institutional mission side. And the state also has a new master plan, by the way. And then institutional capacity, can we currently afford to do this, right? And this is something I want you all to understand too. We are very solvent at MTSU. I mean, the university is in good shape financially. Our enrollment's good. I mean, we're doing, compared nationally, if you're talking to your friends, you know things are good here, right? I mean, we've had it really good here. We're not cutting degree programs. We're not cutting faculty, staff, nothing, right? It's really good time. But we're not in a place where it'd be responsible for us to hire new faculty lines for a program we don't know is gonna be successful or not. So our provost is never going to approve that, a new faculty line to start a new degree program. I've got 2 that are on hold because we can't do that. I think they'll be successful, but the faculty are not comfortable moving forward without new faculty lines. So we stopped it. They said no. We said, okay. You know, it's a negotiation, particularly around budget, when we work through these. So, couple things. I would say to you, if you can't do it with who you currently have, then maybe you can't do it, okay? What a lot of people are doing are interdisciplinary programs. So they're pulling resources from multiple departments, it's in colleges, which I think is great. Now, interdisciplinary programs have their own challenges, but I think they're wonderful and I'm all for it. The other thing is we are working on a new model with a College of Business. They would be the first to do it in my time here, where they upfront money, the college upfronts money to do the hiring and the development and all that. And then we do a revenue share with them when it comes to tuition and fees. Now, it's taken a while for us to get that one worked out because it's new for us, but we can look at some innovative things like that with the understanding that not all of you are from colleges, they're going to have that kind of upfront money. You know, that's just the truth of it, right? But anyway, there are some different kind of models you can look at for that. Existing programs offered at public and private. Public's real easy to find. I can put you on I can teach you how to use the TEC inventory if you don't know how to do that, to get that done. The privates are a little more difficult. You're gonna have to contact them directly, probably, unless you have some other way of doing that. But we do need to share that information. And let me say this, just because the numbers are good at a different institution, doesn't mean we should do it. Because maybe they're serving everyone already. And if it's Tennessee State and AP, if it's everyone in the middle of the state, then maybe we really shouldn't do it. So when people have those numbers and I will say to them, it looks like everyone's getting served. Sometimes they'll say to me, no, because they have all these people that didn't admit, you know, but who need a place to go. We could have those students, or we're going to do it online. No one else is doing it online. You know, though you can make the argument, but you're going to have to make the argument. And first and foremost, that's what LONs are. That's what NAPs are. They're a persuasive document. The whole time you're writing it, you need to think about who your audience is and what you're trying to persuade them to do, which is have a new degree program. So you have to constantly, just like we teach our students with argumentative essays, you've got to constantly be reminding your audience in a technical way. This is not an academic, this is not a journal article, right? It's a technical document that you're writing probably about a 9th grade level on, you know, just keeping it really simple. It's not for people who understand the jargon of your discipline. Okay. And you're just trying to talk them into having this degree. I feel like you want to say something.
I just want to add a comment to something you mentioned about peer institutions and what other institutions are offering. It's all a demand and a supply. So I had a conversation recently with a colleague who referenced that this degree, for instance, is only offered by one school in Tennessee, and they have this much enrollment. But the fact that it's offered only in one place, and of course it has a certain flavor in terms of the niche of the field, is that an indication of overwhelming demand? Is that indication of potentially there is no demand and we only need that one institution?
Mm-hmm.
So we always have to think in terms of supply and demand. That's why like an analysis of the job market is important to see, are we graduating enough nurses, teachers, whatever that field is in that niche that you're proposing? Are we graduating enough on one end, and is the job market, what is the demand of that job market? And you kind of do a comparative analysis. If you see multiple degrees, it doesn't mean the market is saturated. If you see one degree, that doesn't mean there is demand. It's all that comparative analysis. It's just really important to not just throw some numbers down, right? I mean, I do like a table. I like visual representations of data, but don't leave it for the reader to interpret it. You need to interpret it for the reader when you put it down. Also,
these, although I'm saying right in ninth grade level, because that's just a general practice, right? That, don't think they're dumb. They're not dumb. I mean, you need to think about, don't, if you're discovering through this process that maybe this isn't a good idea, then you need to really be reflective of that. And just realize, okay, through this process, I've learned maybe I shouldn't propose this.
Yeah.
Or maybe there's a niche market we're missing in Tennessee that we could serve at MTSU, because we do that. I have a new MFA in film and television I'm putting in front of, written by Ali Sultan, that I'm putting in front of the commission next week. And there's very specific things. We're doing documentary film, right? We're the only public institution who will be doing this in Tennessee. We're half the cost of the private who does it, which is in the Nashville area. It is capped program. It can only have so many students, right? So they are also capped. And we're doing very specific things, right? We do documentary film that's not being done anywhere else close. The Nashville market is unbelievable right now. You all have seen the filming that's going on there. It's now fifth in the country for filming, right? And so these are things we can talk about, the VR stage, right? Like all these, our equipment is unbelievable. We just got a big donor there. We named the college after. Those are things I can sell, both locally and statewide. Same thing, we have a new mechanical systems engineering MS degree I will put in front, written by Lei Miao. I always like to give credit, the faculty, they do all the work. I'm gonna put it in front of the commission in May. We just had an excellent external review. I had to move him online because of the snow that happened last week. I don't know if y'all remember that. And so I was upset because I was like, now I'm gonna have to move that facilities tour to a virtual environment. And man, I want to show off that applied engineering building, right? So Lei was fantastic. He got it moved online with some help from staff. I took photos and things for him. It blew the reviewer away. The facility blew the reviewer away. But if I would have had to shown him Voorhees, I don't know. I honestly don't know if we could have gotten the degree. Like we had to wait, and we've wanted that degree a long time, but we've had to wait. And I think we waited till the right time, because I think this is gonna just be like, from the reviews we've gotten so far, I think it's the least amount of edits I've ever had to do on a proposal, because it's just like, yeah, why don't you all have that? That's kind of been the response, from the reviewer too. So anyway, that's very exciting.
I want to add one thing, Amy, if you don't mind, about your point that you're writing this as a ninth grade level. In a way, if it's obvious, we need this, we have the facilities, we have the equipment, we have the expertise, the market needs this, it will be easy, you can write it easily. If you have to go around and around the idea, maybe that's a sign. But also I would say, you are the faculty developing, or the group of faculty developing the program, you're the experts. Even though all the people reviewing these programs have a lot of experience, but they don't have experience in your field. You have to spell out what is the accreditation requirements. If there is a new accreditation requirement that now compel us to have this new degree. If there is a niche that is unmet and there is like a lot of demand in, let's say, robotics or whatever field there is out there, you have to spell out. When I talked about the supply and demand, like, don't just put the numbers there. The data has to be obviously accurate and well referenced, but spell it out. Make it easy, make it an easily digestible argument. So everybody reads it at the end and say, yeah, it's obvious. Everything is there. And if it's not obvious, then maybe it's not the right time, or you need more data, or need some restructuring. It's a reflection activity. It's like you're trying to convince and sell an idea, but the first person you have to sell it to is yourself, the person developing the program. You have to be fully convinced that it's obvious.
And I can tell when I read a document if you're not convinced. And it's kind of a hard time convincing others, right? If you're not convinced, it's okay to say, I've changed my mind. The accreditation you see there, it's always good if we have a subject area accreditation we can go for, but it's not necessary. We will make a SAC-COC statement there. Feasibility study, that's that study that Rashi keeps referring to around workforce demand. This is so important when it comes to our external audiences. When I go in front of the commission, and feel free to watch the videos for fun of when they've drilled me, when I go in front of the commission, they never ask me about the curriculum because they assume we know what we're doing in that space, right? And I appreciate that. But when it comes to, if our students are going to make back enough money to pay off their student loans, they care a lot about that and how fast they're going to be able to pay back those student loans, how much their cost is, which we have great cost of attendance. So we're in a really good spot there, but they care a lot about how much money our students are going to make 5 years out. And they will want to talk about that to me. I've already gotten notes on the MFA and that they're going to want to talk about that. So just build your really good argument there. And then lastly, on the LON, this is new, the AI disclosure. I'm using AI quite a bit in my writing, so I'm gonna have to think about how I'm gonna ask if it's gonna look bad on us or not. So I'll do some checking on that, on if we want to be using AI or not, because we want to be honest if we are. So I'm gonna have a conversation with the commission staff soon to find out about that. But that's new for us. I've seen it on some other things recently too, around like recommendation letters where people say you should disclose that, if you're doing that. Speaking of letters, by the way, letters from industry aren't required until the NAP. But I always encourage people to work on those early, as well as surveys, if you're gonna do any surveying, because both those things can take some time and you're dependent upon others, right? This isn't your schedule, you're talking about other people's schedule. So I'd encourage you to work on that stuff early. So that is the LON. It, in the end, is it's more like 8 pages or less. But I understand that it can take some time to get that done, okay? But it is important, I'll just give you a writing tip here, is I do a lot of writing for work and I'm still a researcher. I really have to set blocks of time aside on my calendar. And like when I get a proposal in, I go in and put a time on my calendar to go review it. Because if not, it's easy to put off an assignment like this and prioritize other things above it. And then you end up, with a lot of time passing. And it's kind of like writing that dissertation. It gets to where you don't want to go back to it because you haven't looked at it in a while, or you don't want to deal with that feedback you got or whatever. And that's not a good way to keep these things moving along. I'll just say that. So that's the LON step-by-step. I'm not going to go over the NAP step-by-step because I feel like this is enough to get you started and for you to understand what kind of things we're looking at early on. Honestly, if I go through the NAP right now, I can't imagine, because I've watched it, how much that could overwhelm some folks joining us today. But for those of you who need to know every step along the way, it's here for you. But I really encourage you to put it in bite-sized pieces like the elephant, right? One piece at a time, because this can get really, really overwhelming. But if you're looking to leave a legacy at the institution as a professor, I can't imagine a more impactful way. I mean, this is one of the most impactful ways, is curriculum creation at the degree level, right? I'm gonna pause real quick and ask Mary if she's not eating a donut. I don't even know if she's still on here. Or Lane, because we didn't put a sax voice on here. Sorry, friends. Do either one of you want to say anything that I've left off that is like so important at the beginning of this process? Lane, I saw you come off.
Hey, yeah, and Mary may
Okay.
still be on, and we actually are going to have a session in a couple of weeks in the center about accreditation and assessment considerations for new programs. So we really would encourage anybody who is interested in that to please come. As Amy mentioned earlier, there are some SAC-COC considerations related to the percentage of new content. But even if we don't have to report a new program to SAC-COC as a new program, there are other things related to your program assessment plan, institutional effectiveness reports, those kinds of things that you do need to consider. SAC-COC is in the process of revising the principles of accreditation, and so the substantive change process has also changed a bit. They published a new substantive change policy late December, and so we have fewer reporting requirements, but that seems to be changing all the time. So we really just encourage, if you are thinking about starting a new program, let us know as soon as possible, and then that gives us plenty of time to work through it. Amy and her staff have been so nice to include us early on in the process, which really helps us make sure we can meet our timeline with SAC-COC while trying not to get too much in the way of the THAC timeline. And so we will do as much as we possibly can to economize your efforts, and we can use that LON and, well, now the combined, the revised LON and NAP, in order to really complete a lot of the documentation that we have to provide to the commission. So we really do want to make sure that we're using your time well and trying to be as efficient as we possibly can.
Yeah, you're gonna find, we always tell people this when we're in a room together, there are some things THEC really cares about that SACS doesn't care about, and vice versa. And so when you go to do that, SACS documentation, Lane does a really nice job of using everything she can from the documents you've already made for THEC, and she puts it in the SACS document, and then there's just some holes then that get filled in at that point that THEC didn't want, but SACS does. So they've tried to bring those two together, and it's just, this is as close as we've been able to get where we are now. So, which is better than it's ever been, I think, Lane, is where it's at now.
Totally
So,
agree.
yeah. The other thing I want to bring up is that, first of all, you're not going to be alone, especially once you get to the LON process. I keep a little spreadsheet. You'll hear from me frequently, giving you the little nudges if I haven't heard from you in a while. Rasha has been running a cohort for grad level where they've gotten support from each other in the writing of the proposal, and she's been giving some thought to how to revamp that. We've just done our second. She's in the midst of her second cohort. We're thinking about what to do with the third, how to involve the CTM in that, those sorts of things.
Correct.
So there's still that. And there's a stipend
Yes.
that is paid if you go through that cohort as you write.
Yeah, so the cohort meets periodically, and the purpose is to share data resources, the resources that I discussed before, whether like CAST or else. You could have this feasibility questions as you're working toward filling all the checklists for THAC. Just know there are other people around campus doing exactly that, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. That's the purpose, is the idea that initially Amy and Dawn created the cohort, and then we're now about to start a second one. And again, to get peer feedback, have realistic timeline expectation, and then just cherry on top of the cake, because you're putting a lot of time and effort into this outside of your regular job. There is an extra compensation associated with being part of the cohort and having this peer support structure. And timeline, like writing a dissertation, it could take a long time. Any writing creative activity could take as much time as you give it. So being part of that cohort would help with the timeline. The shortest, like Amy said, would be 18 months. And that's just because there are multiple steps. And then at longest,
Years.
Years.
Yeah.
Do you want to add anything about that?
And no, I just want to make it clear that's at the graduate level. And that's because, as you will see, if you look at the degrees we've had approved in the last few years, they've all been at the graduate level except one. I think at the time I've been here, I've only had one undergrad program, and it was going through when I got here, it was BS in cybersecurity management. That is because we very purposely are building out that grad portfolio because it was very underdeveloped. And David and I both recognize that, and we've been very much putting our attention there. You will notice most of them are interdisciplinary, the ones that have been approved.
Yeah.
We also, and this is not the venue for this, but I could come back another time and talk about this if you want. Another way to get a new degree program is to elevate a current concentration. And that looks very different than this process. It is much easier paperwork than this process. It doesn't require me to go in front of the Board of Trustees and the commission, which the new programs do. So there are other ways of getting new degree programs that we have used in forever, been the last few years. Our inventory currently is sitting at about 330 majors and concentrations at the graduate and undergraduate level. I keep a very good eye on that. It is I inherited it incredibly healthy inventory. Thank you, Peter Cunningham and Nita Brooks, who kept the train on the tracks during the interim. And we've been able to maintain it and improve it. I'm very proud of the work we do in curriculum here. We make about 500 catalog changes a year here at MTSU because our faculty are very concerned about staying on trends, staying pedagogically relevant, making sure our students need what they are getting what they need. We're very good at that. It keeps my staff very busy, but they're very good. They're very seasoned and lovely people. And so they do a great job, but that comes from the faculty. I mean, it has to come from the faculty. And so I'm just very impressed with the curriculum work that happens here for sure. So again, you won't be alone. So when you see all this other stuff on this sheet, and then there's more on the back, because number 6 requires many more steps that are on the back. Don't let that overwhelm you, because I will be coaching you all the way through it. I'm the one who goes in front of the Board of Trustees and I go in front of the commission. Now, if you're writing the proposal, I'm going to ask you to come with me, because while I can make the broader university argument, if and when they start asking me discipline specific questions, I want the expert. I'm not going to make stuff up. I mean, I want the expert up there with me, and they've been wowed by our faculty, quite frankly, at every level. And so I just want to continue that tradition. So when I start to sink, a faculty member comes in every time, and I'm like, thank God. I mean, they know what they're talking about, right? Look at this. So I'm going to pause again there. We only have about 10 minutes. And are there specific questions? And feel free to be selfish if you want to make it very discipline specific. We can definitely do that now. Also, I'm always happy, and Rasha too, to meet with you individually. For me, you can contact Angie Price to set up a meeting with me. Just CC me so I can tell her how long to make it and all that sort of thing.
And for me, you can contact me directly or Christine Crisp.
So there's one question in the chat.
Yes.
Does this include minors?
Minors are only catalog changes at MTSU. So the TEC does not maintain currently, this may change in the coming years, they do not currently maintain an inventory of minors. So that's all catalog change here. And there are some best practices around, when we say minors, I hope we're talking undergraduate. I don't want more graduate minors. That's a strange thing. I've never seen those before I got here, but I'm sure it's cool if you have one, but I don't want any more of them. It's a bit of a nightmare in the back end. For a minor, there are best practices around minors, like percentages, just like with majors. You know, I don't like a major to have more than a third of the overall credit hours, right? I like for major to be sitting between 40 and 48 hours. You know, there are best practices too around minors, number of hours, if there should be a shared core, how you assess that, you know, those sorts of things. So I would encourage you, if you're thinking about a minor, to be having those conversations around best practices. I think Tyler is probably a really good contact for you, Tyler Henson, the registrar, when you're talking about minors specifically.
And that's a good thing, that it doesn't go to THEC from the perspective it's not going to take a long time.
Mm-hmm.
It's all internal. Like, you're probably going to be thinking about the same questions, but all the approval is internal. But I want to add, unless there's another question in the chat, I do agree with Amy that developing a new academic program, whether at undergraduate level or the graduate level, is one of the most impactful things that a college department could do. It gives you access to another population of students that you're not currently serving. It expands access, enhance the scholarship reputation. And if it's done well, it's typically a win-win. It's a win for the institution, it's a win for the students, it's a win for the department. And when you prove there is demand because students are coming here, extra students are coming here, resources follow as well. And if it's not done well, if the questions we're asking today, you're answering them, but again, you haven't convinced yourself, and maybe you've convinced your units, but then it's just strains university resources because you're going through this process. It's at least a 2-year process. You start a new program, and again, you're not growing the pie, you're just changing hands. Students that are going to A, they're just going to go to B.
No, and this may be obvious, but I had something happen last week that really put an exclamation point on it. Good curriculum is good for recruitment. And I'm not talking about just student recruitment. I'm talking about faculty recruitment. We had a chair candidate on campus recently. When he met with me, he made mention of how antiquated the curriculum in the department seemed because he had a national understanding of what the curriculum should look like in the discipline. And I said, oh, well, that's exciting, huh? I'm trying to like sell it. Like, wouldn't that be fun to come in and clean up, you know? But no, that's not what he was looking for, right? He wanted to walk into a department where he felt the curriculum was up at the national level because that's not where he wants to spend his time as a new chair, right? And maybe somebody, I would have wanted that as a chair, but not all of them do. So I think, you know, having good curriculum is such a reflection on your department and your college, having updated good curriculum.
And like I
Right.
started, that is the best recruiting strategy. As much as we can do great flyers and great websites, a good solid programs is going to sell itself. And as you I will maybe finish, since we're getting close to the end, with how we started. Is like you're here because you're probably thinking about a new program, or you want to develop a new program, or you have already an idea in mind and you just want to know the timeline and the process. And maybe in your mind, okay, what type of programs are being successful and they go all the way to the finish line? Well, let me share with you. One would be an interdisciplinary program. Give you an example, a program that's going through the pipeline right now, Master of Health and Administration. These are healthcare administrators, with Nashville being a big healthcare hub in the nation. Well, CBHS has a lot of healthcare expertise. And then the business college has a lot of management and business expertise. And interdisciplinary programs sometimes could be joining things that exist in our institution and then packaging them into a new program for a population of students who are interested in that specifically. Another possibility is a niche program, let's say biology, but then within biology, or engineering technology, to give another example, engineering technology, but then within engineering technology, there is maybe mechatronics or industrial engineering or something, that a niche within that field that does not exist already. Another example could be, and I've seen this, just the mode of delivery. We have a program at MTSU that's being offered, but now we're creating one that's going to be suitable for another population of students who, we're going to create a program that is 100% online with some flavoring on it that targets professionals in the greater Nashville area or in Tennessee or in the Southeast because they're interested in a different mode of delivery. So these are all ways, again, out of the box ideas beyond just, this is a new field that we don't have represented at MTSU already, that we don't have represented well in the state of Tennessee. Those are not going to be that many.
Are there other questions or comments? I'll just say about that, there is a sweet spot, right? Like, we can't be the first in the country to offer something typically because it's too risky. But we want to be an early adopter, particularly in Tennessee, because if you let the time pass, that is what happens sometimes with these proposals. They take so long to write that, guess what? ETSU, APSU, TSU, one of the others gets in front of us, and then we lose our ability to get the students we need because it's so niche. It's going to be a particular amount of students, right? And so it is important for us to stay on trend, but not too trendy, you know, but we do need to be early adopters in the space for sure.
That's great. Thank you all so much. If I had to summarize some of the key things that you all were saying. It's exciting to build curriculum, but we can't do it alone. We have to start early and often with our administrators and make sure they're on board, making sure that we have the resources. I heard you all speak of a ton of resources that are available through the graduate school, but then just the people resources with knowledge. So thank you all for that. This whole business of being able to sell why the program is needed, I think is huge. Sometimes we're creative folks. We love our areas of specialization a lot. And so we get caught up in that, but we can't really sell it to other people. And so really thinking about how we can do that and really what the target audience is really important. So thank you all for that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Aldridge.
Thanks everyone for
Thanks
coming.
to the Zoom participants, those in the room. Don't forget, we have 3 more sessions coming up related to new programs and courses. The next one, as Lane Bryant mentioned, is on February 23rd at 9 a.m. on a Monday. So we will be on Zoom and in this space as well. So check out the other sessions on our website. Thank you all for being here.